Hello there everyone, my name is Iolo Williams. I'm president of the Welsh Ornithological Society, and usually we'd be meeting in a conference every November. Unfortunately in 2020 we weren't able to meet because of COVID, and COVID-19 has played havoc with a lot of the research that's been going on, a lot of the monitoring work going on in Wales. And at these conferences I usually give a roundup of the monitoring for that year. So that's exactly what I'm going to do online here now today. So I'll crack on with it. We'll also hear later on from Kelvin Jones of the BTO, and hopefully as well from someone from the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds too. But I'll crack on with my section here now. As I said, COVID-19 played havoc with fieldwork this year, so thanks to everybody who actually sent in records and people who were able to get out and about and do a bit of work. Some good news, very good news to start off with, is that a very prominent ornithologist here in Wales, Stephanie Tyler, she was made Baroness Stephanie, no, it's not Baroness, sorry. She was given an MB, she should be a Baroness. She's a very formidable lady. So Steph, congratulations to you, thoroughly well deserved. And usually I bash Natural Resources Wales a little bit, but I'm not going to. I'm going to praise them this time because they acted very quickly trying to buy 5,342 acres of Llanbrynmair forest, which used to be a moorland area. I remember it as a kid being a fantastic area of moorland supporting hen harrier, merlin, dunling, golden plover, red grouse, black grouse, curlew, all of these birds. Unfortunately, it was sacrificed and afforested in the 1980s, and there was an opportunity to buy it this year to get the trees off, to block the ditches, important of course, to lock in carbon, to alleviate flooding, to help biodiversity. But the Welsh Assembly, bear in mind this was pre-COVID, the Welsh Assembly didn't think that a few measly million, it wasn't worth it, which is shocking. But NRW, well done, and thank you for acting quickly on that too. We'll move on now. Bird of prey persecution, unfortunately, reared its ugly head in Wales, as it has done elsewhere. Lockdown forced a lot of us to stay in, not to go out onto the hills and the moors, but birds were being shot, trapped and poisoned. At least 3 red kites were shot just on the road from here near the village of Tregunnon. And also a pair of hen harriers disappeared on the Radnorshire moors. We'll be looking into that next year. It's an area where we've suspected there's quite a bit of persecution in the past. And of course, there's the famous Tregaron golden eagle was found dead with some lead shot, probably historical, but it just goes to show there are idiots out there who will have a pop at absolutely anything. Let's get on with the breeding birds now, and some wintering birds as well. Start with cattle egret, not yet nesting in Wales, nesting just over the border, but 10 roosting in Cardiff Bay in July is a cracking record. Common cranes have bred for the past few years here in Wales. They didn't breed, unfortunately, in East Glamorgan this year, although one bird did spend early spring at the undisclosed previous breeding site. So again, with an expanding population, there's hope for the future there. Greenland white-fronted geese, small population overwintering in Wales, highest count of 27 in November 2020. Of course, there is a significant movement between the Dyfi Estuary flock and the Wexford flock, a much bigger flock over there, and the bulk of the UK population, well, the bulk of the world population, I should say, all the world's wintering population is here in the UK, and the bulk of them overwinter either at Wexford slobs over in Ireland or on Iolo. Barnacle geese, there's a growing feral flock at Ynys. This moves between Ynys and Cumbria. The flock on the Dyfi continues to grow with a maximum count of 526, which is quite a sight. Feral they may be, but they're lovely geese. Mute swans, Tony Cross continued his monitoring of breeding swans on the Montgomery Canal between Newtown and Llanymynech, just on the border with England, and found 13 to 14 nesting pairs. 3 to 4 pairs failed, but 10 pairs successfully reared 49 cygnets. Hooper swans, the big flock up on the Glaslyn near Porthmadog, had a maximum count of 72 in February, and the other end of the year they had a maximum of 41 in December. Ospreys, bred in Wales again, of course. First breeding was in 2004, and in summary 5 nests produced 12 young, so that's a record here. And the nests, quite well known now, most of them. Clywedog nest in mid Wales here, 3 chicks reared, 3 males. Glaslyn near Porthmadog, 3 chicks, 2 females and 1 male. Not far from Glaslyn is another nest as well. 3 chicks there, 1 female and 2 males. On the Dovey estuary, very well known nest of course, 2 chicks there, 2 males. And Brennig, our newest nest there, 1 chick, a female. So a total of 4 females and 8 males. Unfortunately, up at Llyn Brennig, there was an unsavoury incident where the single chick was reportedly scared from the nest area by a reality TV show. Imagine the idiots who allowed that reality TV show to go ahead when the pair still had dependent young there. The bird relocated to another part of the lake and it was later killed by one of the adjacent wind turbines. Now, would that have happened if it wouldn't have been disturbed? I don't know, it's, you know, we shouldn't speculate about such things, but certainly they shouldn't be allowing an idiotic reality TV show adjacent to a nesting osprey. The police looked at it and according to the police, there was no offence committed. Debatable. Honey buzzards, after dwindling population, at one time we had at least 10 pairs here in Wales being located most years. Just 1 pair in recent years, unfortunately, but it appears that the well-studied population in South Wales is on the increase. 2 pairs and a single male were recorded this year, with the original colour ring 2008 male still there. Birds are also seen at some of the North Wales sites that previously held breeding pairs, so it bodes well for future years, but we just need to get people out and about into the field, COVID permitting. Marsh harriers, pair bred for the 2nd year running at a site in South Wales, west of Cardiff. They breed on Anglesey, of course, and hopefully the RSPB will tell us more about that. Hen harriers, an area surveyed by Keith Offord on Berwyn, located 11 territorial pairs, and 8 of those were successful in rearing 24 young. On Pimlimon, 1 pair bred but failed. There were other breeding pairs, but I haven't had those records in. Kestrels, a successful season in Mid Wales thanks to Tony Cross, with 7 nests producing 35 fledged young. So that's a good year for them. It's nice to see kestrels doing well. Declining species here in Wales. Hobby, 5 pairs present in the well-studied Usk Valley area with 3 nests located. Many other sightings throughout Wales. It's a thriving and an increasing population, but very little work done on this species away from that Usk Valley area. Merlin, on the same area of North Berwyn where Keith Offord located 11 pairs of hen harriers. In the past, he's had 7 to 8 pairs of Merlin there. That was in the 1980s. Just 1 territorial pair there this year. It's very much a declining species here. It's not doing well at all. Green Sandpiper, minimum of 12 birds were located wintering along the Ely Valley, Cardiff area in December. And national importance is just 3, so 12 birds is really significant. Little ring plover, good season with low river levels at critical time on the Usk, leaving plenty of exposed shingle banks. 5 pairs nested in 1 shingle bar, and one of those nests featured on Springwatch in 2020. If you were watching, I hope so. Scockholm, spring puffin counts up to 8,534 adults. That's up from 7,500 in 2019. And here's an interesting one for you. Dunnock bred on Scockholm for the first time since 2012. Scoma, great news is that the kittiwake population increased. It's a seabird that's been declining here in Wales, whereas all of our other seabirds, or most of them at least, have been doing really well. Kittiwakes have been in decline, but increase on Scoma to 1,680 pairs. That's an increase of about 200 pairs. I hope that continues. We've been very worried about this bird for quite some time. Puffins, spring population on Scoma in 2020 is a massive 34,000 individuals. Again, you hear about declines elsewhere, but they're doing well here in Wales, touch wood so far. And Chuff on Scoma, 4 pairs, fledged 5 young. Short-eared owls, 3 pairs, fledged 4 young. Believe it or not, that's the stronghold for them in Wales. And Curlew, 2, possibly 3 territories, but not a single young fledged. That's the only place you've got breeding curlew in the whole of Pembrokeshire now. That's how scarce that bird's become. Kemlyn terns, spectacular year, due in part to the failure of the Skerries birds near Holyhead, with over 9,000 terns present at its very peak. Due to the arrival of the Skerries birds, many common and Arctic terns didn't fledge until mid-August, and the last sandwich tern chick fledged on the 16th of August. That's incredibly late for those birds. Sandwich terns, a maximum of 1,984 pairs, very, very big colony there. Common terns in May 113 pairs, but by June, thanks to this influx of birds, it was 260 to 330 pairs. Arctic terns in May, again 113 pairs, but by June it had gone up to 510 to 640 pairs. And the black-headed gull colony there, which is really important because they provide an early warning system and protection for those nesting terns, 218 pairs there. Again, that's a declining species here in Wales. Little terns, despite over 300 adult birds turning up on the site at Gronant near Prestatyn in northeast Wales, first round of nests failed following a storm in early June. About 89 pairs relayed, but many of the chicks were lost to sandblow and, ironically, kestrel predation. 32 young fledged, but the good news is that there's been a branching off. There's been a small colony established at the Point of Ayr nearby. 21 breeding pairs fledged, 28 young there. And bear in mind, in the 1980s, we have 5 colonies scattered throughout North Wales. Barn owl, the Montgomeryshire barn owl group covered about 90% of the boxes they erected. 44 successful breeding attempts reared 157 chicks at the rate of 3.56 per successful nest. Estimated 85 pairs of barn owls in Montgomeryshire now, and that's close to the 1932 estimate of 93 pairs. Unfortunately, just 2 pairs of little owl were located. That's a massive decline here. Long-eared owl, although just 1 nest was searched for down in southeast Wales, an area of southeast Wales that was featured on Springwatch also. This same area had 3 hooting males along a continuous kilometre of forest moorland edge, and this indicates that there's good numbers of this secretive bird in these remote moorland habitats. It's just no one's out there looking for them at the right time. Nightjar, 6 singing males, an area of larch plantation that had been felled in the winter of 2019-20, and that shows the rapid colonisation of new suitable habitat by these birds. 4 nests were located there. At Clocaenock Forest, they had a fairly successful breeding season, but first broods were initiated quite late, leaving little time for second broods. 18 nests were located in all, and of 13 first or replacement broods, 2 failed on eggs. 1 was predated on large chicks, but 10 were successful in rearing 18 young. 4 second broods fared less well in the cold summer, with 3 nests failing and the 4th rearing a single chick. Lesser spotted woodpecker, again an incredibly rare bird now in Wales. 2 pairs at Ynysir, with at least 2 to 3 further pairs in the Dyfi Valley. So there's a survey planned for this year, hopefully, to see whether it's just under-recorded in that area. The final couple now, dippers, based on the adult to juvenile ratio, 240 dipper roost sites. They either had a bad breeding season or poor juvenile survival, as adults outnumber juveniles by around 2 to 1, and normally you get slightly more juveniles than adults at these roosts. Lots of deserted clutches were found in nests in the autumn as well, so poor breeding season for dippers. And finally, firecrest, again an under-recorded bird. 1 nest featured on Springwatch, and this unremarkable piece of mixed woodland held at least 6 pairs. So there you go. That's the summary. Thanks again to everybody who sent in records, and an appeal really for people to get out in 2021, COVID permitting of course, and get out there and do some bird monitoring. Thanks for listening. Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi.
Good morning, my name's Kelvin Jones, for those who don't know me, and I am the Development and General Officer for the BTO across Wales. BTO in Wales has been in place now since 2011, so hopefully this 10-year anniversary will see things a little bit better than last year, 2020, which I'm sure most of us would like to forget as being a bit of a disaster, really. So what have we been up to in 2020? Most people would say that in times like this that support and membership would be going down. Fortunately, we have got a stalwart and very faithful band of members and supporters who have stood by the BTO If anything, membership has grown nationally, and your support for everything that we do has been wonderful. It helps the staff keep them focused to know that you're there supporting us, and without you, there would not be an organisation. So can I thank each and every one of you, members, supporters, volunteers, for your efforts over the last 12 months. It's gone a long way to keeping the organisation happy and going. So on the subject of well-being and such stuff, we all appreciate during these times that have been this last 12 months, actually getting out into nature was for most of us a very big part of our lives. Okay, we've been restricted to sort of local walks for the last 12 months, but I'm sure we've all found our nice little places, and it has gone a long way to help with our mental health, which everybody keeps talking about at the moment. I know that it was easier to cope with it in spring when the weather was nice than it was towards Christmas. I'm convinced that I'm one of these people that does get this seasonal disorder at Christmas every year, or is it just that it's Christmas and we're back at work in January? But getting outdoors into the fresh air, seeing the birds, listening to them, seeing what's happening in the garden has all helped an awful lot. Something that proved very popular this last year was a podcast done by Martin Shaw. Some of us are of an age when we remember him with curly hair and no beard. He now looks like a typical BTO member with white hair and a beard. Or that's what they were 10 years ago, not anymore. We've now got an awful lot of younger people in the organisation, and as volunteers and members, and an awful lot of young women, and long may it be so. So Martin did this podcast about well-being. It's well worth watch. You can find it on our YouTube channel. If you watch it, enjoy it, and it'll take you to sort of that nice spot, hopefully, where it takes you away from all the misery that this disease is giving us at the moment. So, last 12 months, huge changes. First and foremost, our Chief Executive Officer, Andy Clement, decided that he was retiring after 14 years. I'm sure for those of you who are long-term members will remember that Andy has changed the BTO somewhat. It's now very much an outward-looking organisation. We've embraced lots of new stuff, the diversity and young people coming into it, the representation of women has grown immensely, and all this is down to Andy. It was great to have a boss that led from the front, as they say. As most of you know, we don't really have nature reserves. We have a couple of lakes that came with a building in Thetford, and there's a bit of a nature reserve there. Whenever something interesting or rare turns up there, it was always good to see that Andy led the staff out the front door to go and see these stuff. On behalf of us all, I'm wishing him a well-reserved retirement. He's not going to be a stranger to the BTO, as he will still be doing his BBS squares and his bird track lists, and I'm sure we'll see him at conferences in the future. Andy's successor is Professor Juliet Vickery. She comes to us from the RSPB, where she worked on the international side of stuff. However, she has worked for the BTO in the past. She led the team in the terrestrial ecology department looking at farmland birds, was with us for many years. So she comes to us with a good knowledge of how the BTO works. She has got some ideas of how to take the charity forward, but she's not going to push them through this next year until we sort of get our feet under us recovering from COVID. If she does half the job that Andy does, she will be wonderful. And I wish her all the success in the job. I can honestly say she has deliberately met all the staff members, had one-to-ones with us via all sorts of medias, informal chats. She is very supportive of the country agencies, or the country subdivisions we've got, in that she is aware that Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland are very different to the national English picture that we get from Thetford, and is supportive of our individuality and what we bring to the mix. So all the best to Juliet for the next 15 years, I hope. So what have we been doing this last year? No doubt BBS. Some of you all do BBS, I hope. We were in lockdown when BBS started, restricted to 5 miles from home. So some people managed to get something done, some didn't. More people got second visits done, but unfortunately the lockdown rules and whatever meant lots of people didn't get them done this year. Let's see if we've got some figures. So the 5 mile travel limit was okay for some of us. For me, it was ideal because section 5 of one of my BBSs actually starts at my front gate. So I could have done that quite happily, and I did the second visit. I didn't get the first one done. If you look at the figures, 2019, we got 328 BBS squares across Wales. Last year, we got 56. Not very good. But don't worry. You might think, well, if, BBS was a bit of a washout, your data will still be used, as will all your other data that you collect via bird track and stuff. There's loads of stuff for it to be used for other analysis and other things. So if you managed to get it done, great. If you didn't, sorry, we couldn't do much else. I think one of the most trying things that have presented themselves this 12 months is sorting out the differences in what the different countries were allowed to do. I think England, there was some weird exemption. If you were volunteering, you could do stuff. Scotland have got different access things to here in Wales. Whereas here in Wales, I think the precautionary attitude of better safe than sorry has overridden everything. And having listened to Mr. Drakeford at times when he says, yes, lots of individual groups can make out wonderful cases for why their particular activity is totally safe, and BBS would fit perfectly into that. But if we let one group have an exemption, we've got to let everybody, and then we might as well not have a lockdown at all. So if it means a poor year and we're getting a grip with this disease, well, I'm all for it. So I won't mention WBBS because none of them are local to anybody. And I'm afraid with lockdowns, they just didn't get done this year. So hopefully we'll see if we can get them done next year. So like I said, your data goes into other stuff. European Breeding Bird Atlas was published around Christmas. And all your BBS data, your bird track data, ringing data, nest record data, all goes into it. If you look quickly at the chart here, you will see that most of the data for that atlas has come from the BTO for the UK. So to all of you who've put data in for all our various schemes, thanks awfully. It's being used, as you can see, for big projects like this. I often say to people that we sometimes get a bit worried about what happens in Wales or the UK. We've got to remember we are part of a big continent, and the birds don't recognise some of these boundaries. And it's important that we look at them in a big picture to get the proper picture of what's going on, not just on small little plots. So thank you very much. Bird track. Interestingly enough, numbers of people taking part in bird track went up this year from 943 to 1,038. I don't think that included all the people that come here for their holidays and put bird track data in and all the rest of it, but it went in. Surprisingly, the actual number of observations fell from nearly 43,000 or 430,000 to 383,000. Possibly that's due to the end of year lag, because I know lots of people put all the data in at lots of end of the year and it picks things up a little bit. Or is it possibly due to the fact that everybody was stuck to walking a local patch? We'll see. There'll be some interesting analysis of what's been gone into bird track, but we'll see what happened. Interesting myself, looking at stuff through bird track and reading all the blogs and stuff. It's surprising how much interesting stuff people have been discovering locally. In particular, my little interest is black-red stats. We've always had one or two black-red stats across Welsh coastline in winter. Having perused all the data and bird track things, we've got an awful lot of wintering black-red stats here in Wales, and it would be very interesting to know a lot more about them. So we might do a bit more on that in the future. Garden birdwatch, it has proved a lifeline to lots of people who need something to focus on in these bad times. Watching birds in the garden has been great. Here we go. Highlighted this particular year by, as most of you know, Garden Birdwatch is not supported by any of the major organisations, government or whatever, so it needs to pay its own way. So there's always been an admin fee for being part of it to cover the staff time and the magazines. So because of this year and the huge increase of people looking at stuff in the gardens and wanting something to do, Garden Birdwatch has been free. And the result of that is that there's over 10,000 people nationally have taken up Garden Birdwatch for free. In Wales, an extra 534 gardens are now in the scheme. And there is the diagram. Sorry, let's go back. So it went up by 534 and lots of data's coming in. Again, it's local, it's great. We've engaged with lots and lots of new people. Hopefully some of you new people who are listening to this will, from Garden Birdwatch, realise that you've got the ID skills. You've hopefully, with our online training that we're doing, we'll be able to build on this for some of you and get you out doing BBS and other surveys shortly, as soon as the COVID restrictions come off. It's a great starting point for your journey with the BTO, and hopefully it's not the end of your journey. Hopefully we can push you forward, teach you stuff, get you doing our online courses. Restrictions will come to an end. We can do proper courses where face-to-face goes on, which I think is vital. And then hopefully in your journey, you will move on to doing BBS and some of the other surveys as they come on board. And webs. Here's the graph for Wales. It didn't really get affected beginning of the year and beginning of the winter, as it is predominantly a winter survey. 85% of the usual webs visits got done. This last winter we're in now is probably going to affect the data an awful lot more because we are in the peak webs period and we're just not getting them done as we can't get out to get them done. I think this is the first time since 1991 that I will not have a full winter's data set of the local Hooper Swan herd. And it aches a little bit, but they're just beyond my daily walk without pushing it ridiculously, so I will not be doing it. So can't expect all our volunteers and supporters to abide by the rules if I'm going to stretch them, so I'm trying to do my bit by leading from the front. Nest recording and ringing, what can I say? It was severely held back this year. Basically, most of the ringing that's gone on was been done in gardens. Some of us, like myself, was lucky in that I could get my constant effort site, which for non-ringers means it is a site where I ring once every 10 days from the beginning of May through till the end of August. And in that period, I put nets up in exactly the same place for 5 hours from dawn, and I catch everything and ring and process everything, which basically tells me what my resident birds are when my migrant birds come back. From checking the breeding conditions, I can tell you when they go to nest, what stage they are when they're breeding, when the chicks first turning up, when they start fattening up, when the birds move on, and it gives me a broad picture of what the productivity is for the year. I managed to get mine done. Lots of people didn't because it meant a lot of travelling and restrictions. Plus, mine is a relatively small one. I can do it by myself. Other people have got rather big ones, so it needs a team of people, and social mixing distancing is not really conducive to bringing in a group, especially if you've got trainees where you've got to get up and close. So that's not got done. Hopefully this coming year things will be better, and this year will just be like foot to mouth year, and other years where we're just a blip on the big scale of life and we can get back to normal. It wasn't all doom and gloom ringing wise. Here's a lady from down in Pembrokeshire, Alison Rees, recently got her ringing permit following lots of trainings years before, beginning just before the lockdown started. And as you can see, she's got a lovely garden and she's done rather well. For those of you who don't, just S is when you subsequently catch a ring bird, and N are new birds. And as you can see, Alison's had a cracking year. Generally, I always say to people that when people first get their ringing licenses to operate independently like Alison, it's very much like passing your driving test. It's a huge confidence builder those first 6 months by yourself. You wouldn't be allowed to do it if your trainer wasn't happy. You'd be allowed to do it, but you've still got to believe in yourself and get out there and get the self-confidence. And looking at this, Alison's done a cracking job all by herself down there. And look forward to catching up with us so we can discuss some of these good things. Look at these house sparrows. Oh, I can't catch a single one in my garden. Little anecdote, some years back, I caught a number of house sparrows, well, most of the house sparrows that came into my garden. They promptly sulked, and they are now 50 metres down the road in my old police sergeant's garden. You can see them on his feeders, all with lovely bits of anklets on them, and they don't come anywhere near our house. So there we are. They're not dim little birds, they're quite bright, so they know what's going on. What else have we been up to? We have been partners in the Echoes project. Echoes is a project funded by the EU, and it is a partnership between Wales and Ireland, Cork University, Aberystwyth University, and a few others, looking at the effects of global warming on the Irish Sea and the habitat surrounding it. So our part of it is we're looking at green and white-fronted geese on the Dyfi and on Anglesey, and curlews. So for more details of what's going on with Echoes, you could go to their Facebook page or the website. There are regular updates on both, what goes on. Some interesting maps being shared about what some of these curlews are doing on the Mathraeth estuary. And interestingly, there's some satellite tags gone on the small population of white fronts on Anglesey, and it'll be interesting to see what that comes back to us, because I think the intensive field work this last winter, by paid staff, may I add, has proved that the small flock on Anglesey is not insignificant in a Welsh population. The huge flock at the Dyfi is no longer there, but it's still very, very important. So it'll be interesting to see, especially with the weather, looking out the window here, the cold, how that affects them. Will they end up in Ireland or what? We'll find out. Here's a map of the curlews on Mathraeth. They were originally, satellites went on 3 of them in these fields here. This is where they've all been going. Interestingly, you can see some of them are going to pasture fields up here and some up this way, while some are just making use of the estuary. The beauty of these tags are that as soon as the birds molt, the tags will fall off the birds, so we're not there forever, as some people worry about them. But if they do fall off, they're quite easy for us to find where they are, because we'll just turn up with a transmitter, which will give us the exact GPS reference, and we can go and pick them up, service them, put new batteries in them, and they're ready to go for next year's season. Retirements. Those of you who know Jeff Gibbs, Jeff has been the regional rep for Carnarvonshire for quite a while now. And previous to coming back to North Wales, he was a regional rep down in Essex, and he's decided that it is now time for him to hang up the pencil and just concentrate on enjoying his birding. Realistically, we must also thank Kate for putting up with him. I think the highlight of working with Jeff over the years has been every time Jeff had phoned up, I'd sort of put the phone down and think, damn, I volunteered for something again. So all the best in retirement, Jeff, and no doubt Jeff will still continue to be a big part of the family and continue doing all what he does, his BBS and all the rest of it. So happy retirement. We've also lost Paul Aubrey as the Carmarthen rep. Paul retired some years back and went as a volunteer for Carmarthen Council in their outdoors department, shall we say, in Pembrey. Subsequently ended up with a full-time job, and the pressures on the parks and outdoor departments of the council are such with all the problems with COVID and whatever, that Paul is now snowed under with work and is finding it impossible to put the proper amount of time in to being the regional rep. We've got somebody who's applied for the role, and at the moment I can't confirm who it is, but as soon as I know, I'll let you all know. So, something to look forward to. Welsh Ornithological Society had a look at the original birds in Wales done by Roger Lovegrove, Graham Williams, and our president, Iolo Williams, back in 1991, nearly 30 years ago. So lots of things have changed, lots of things needed updating. So it's all been done. There's been a team of people busy writing species accounts, researching the birds. We've got all the data from the Atlas and from Bird Track. Everything's been updated. It is currently at the publishers, Liverpool University Press, and hopefully shortly there will be a pre-publication offer, which will be cheaper than buying it afterwards. And as always, we've got a cracking Peter Snow cover for this. So I'm looking forward to this, very much so, as hope you all are. And thank you very much. Hopefully that hasn't rambled on too long, that you're all happy with how 12 months have gone. Like, not the perfect words to say, really, but there we are. If you want me, there's my mobile phone number. I wouldn't phone the office as we are still working from home. I've not been in the office since last March. My email, you've all got it. So any questions, anything else you want to know, get in touch and I'll do my best to help you out. Thank you very much.